Welcome to Upleveling, the podcast dedicated to building better leaders, smarter systems, and bigger results. I found that the one thing that I was not made aware of before starting a business is that business ownership can feel really lonely, even when things are going really well. You're the one making the decisions and carrying the responsibility, holding everything together. And most of the time, you're doing that without anyone truly understanding what it feels like to sit in your seat. That's why I want to talk today about the power of community, specifically being part of a mastermind group or developing your own type of group or community that you can be a part of. I'm in a group called FRG, and that stands for Financial Review Group. It's a group of about 10 accounting firm owners, and a few times a year we meet, but always at the beginning of the year we meet. We sit down together, we review our financials, our stats, our challenges, our goals. And to be very honest, this was super vulnerable to do, especially as someone who had always been a business owner, but no one else has really looked at my numbers. Like that was just something that I did. And so there was a lot of vulnerability to that first year and to like opening up to the group. But there's so much power behind that and having a group that's on your side. So what we do in the group is we talk through really what's working, what's not, the real issues we're facing in business. And every single time I leave pushed to do better, I get much more clear on my next steps, and I feel supported and celebrated at the same time. And here's the interesting part. Science actually backs up why groups like this work so well. We're not meant to grow in isolation. We're wired to grow in community. So first, let's talk a little bit about the loneliness of leadership, because business ownership can be incredibly isolating. You don't have a boss. You really can't look towards your team for answers, not support. You have to start being very careful about that as you start to grow. I found that that was really hard for me because I was so used to being transparent because it was just me and one other person on the team, and we really bonded, and I shared a lot of struggles, a lot of thoughts. But what I realized is as I grew the team and I grew the business, those thoughts are not meant to be shared with employees, especially if you're having bad days, because you'll start to scare your employees off where they think, oh my gosh, she's going to quit, or she's going to sell this business, or she's going to fire us all. And so you really have to learn to keep those thoughts and those ideas and frustrations to yourself. So your team is not there for that support. And then when you look towards your friends and family, they don't always understand the weight of decisions or what's going on. I've struggled with this a little bit in the beginning of my business, I had a lot of free time, or I didn't have a lot going on. And that's drastically changed over the years. And so sometimes my friends or my family don't really understand that. They don't understand why I can't just like duck out and go have fun for the day, or I can't just skip out on work and do something that they would rather do. And so you can't always turn to friends and family for them to understand that leadership position and the loneliness and the decisions and the things weighing on you. But what I will point out is that research actually shows if you can find peer groups, it does reduce your isolation and feeling like you're alone, because you have these shared experiences, and that's what really increases your resilience, because you start to hear stories from other people of the same thing you're feeling or the same thing that you're experiencing. And you just realize that, hey, we're in this together, or they understand where I'm coming from. Just being in a room with people who get it changes everything. So let's talk a little bit about why I think masterminds can move you more into solution mode. Because when you're alone, you tend to just ruminate in these problems or you replay problems in your head. I know I've done that so many times, especially like with client issues, and you just continue to replay it and you get stuck in your own perspective. And honestly, you start to beat yourself down. Whereas if you have a community or a like minded group of peers, you have someone to turn to and talk to about your problems and to speak them out loud, where you can then start to get solutions from different angles. And that doesn't mean someone's going to hand you the answer to your problem or fix things in your business, but getting someone else's perspective can give you so much clarity to solve your own problems, as well as realizing like, hey, this isn't just me, this is happening to other people. That's something I really struggled with. Like, why is this so hard? Why do I keep running into problems? Why is nothing working? And you start to realize when you're in a mastermind or you're in a peer group, these people have the same problems I do. And so it starts to build the resilience of, all right, I can tackle this, I can do this. And that's really what resilience is. It's getting back up again and continuing to move forward when you're being pushed backwards. And when you start to do that every single day, you build resilience. I like to think of resilience kind of like a rubber band. If you have, a rubber band and when you first get it and you stretch it, it doesn't stretch very easily. But then over time, it actually gets stretched out and it's like super easy to stretch back and forth. That's the same thing as resilience. Like the more you build, the more resilient you become. But let me get back on topic a little bit. So research actually shows that group discussions can shift people from stress to solution-oriented thinking. And I think that's really important because what happens when we're alone is, like I mentioned before, we will replay these problems and we'll just think about it and think about what happened instead of getting into solution mode. And when we are around groups and masterminds and peers, they will help us shift from that stress and that problem playing over and over in our mind to a solution. So, for example, with my FRG, usually every year I will sit down and I will think about what are the big issues that I need to work through over the next year, and how can I talk to this group about helping me work through it. I'm super fortunate that there are people in my group that are way ahead of me and they've already been where I'm at. And to be able to get their perspective and to get their advice really is firm changing for me. Now, it doesn't mean that they're handing me the answer and I'm going to turn around and do that exactly, because I have to do what fits me and what fits my firm. But just being able to bring these issues to people that understand where I'm at and where I'm headed really is firm changing. I'm able to leave that meeting, which is usually about a 3-day meeting, leave there with a lot of clarity and very clear next steps of what I need to do. As I'm recording this podcast, I actually just got back from my FRG group meeting, which is kind of what's inspired this. And so I have a huge list of next step things that I want to do or I want to solve. And it's so exciting to have that and to know like, okay, this is what I'm tackling and this is where we're headed. And I've never left one of those meetings feeling more stuck than when I arrived. And that's the end goal. Another thing I want to touch on is the fact that accountability can start to change your behavior. I am not a big believer in motivation. Motivation comes and goes. I think I've said a couple of times that think about working out. Like, how often are you motivated to work out? Like, that's going to come and go depending on how you're feeling, how you slept, how you ate, what you have going on for the day. And so motivation is not going to show up for you. It's going to come and go as it pleases. So we're not going to rely on motivation to make changes. But what we can rely on is accountability because it can actually drive action. Because when you say out loud to a group of people, hey, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, or I have X, Y, and Z goal, you are more likely to follow through. Research actually shows that peer accountability increases goal completion. I think that is pretty fascinating. The fact that we can just find a group of like-minded people to share our goals with is increasing the likelihood that we're actually going to achieve it. That's the same thing that happens with my FRG and our connection. We come into that and we are reviewing like real financials. And so this group is looking at my profit and loss, and they're looking at my revenue and my cost of labor and what I'm taking home. And if I am setting goals to increase the top line revenue year over year, I know that, hey, in 12 months, I'm going to show back up and they're going to wonder, did she meet her goal? Here's what she said. Where is she at? And so that gives a little bit of, I guess, peer pressure is definitely the right word. But it's just the fact that I'm saying that goal out loud to a room full of people, and they're going to help hold me accountable. I am not someone who likes to fail. I mean, I don't think anyone really likes to fail, but I'm not someone who does fail. Actually, let me reword that. I have failed plenty of times. I am someone who fails and gets back up and goes at it again. That's where that resilience comes from. And so I know that I'm going to win. I am going to set these goals and I'm going to show back up in 12 months to this group and I'm just going to have kicked ass. So having the group to rely on is very beneficial. Because really, at the end of the day, setting those goals publicly is going to raise your standard. Because it is harder for you to move the goalpost when other people know the goal. But really, growth doesn't come from pressure alone. It comes from getting out of your comfort zone and getting out of being alone, getting out of your head. Because the magic is really in positive pressure and getting support. That is where the sweet spot is. And the magic really is being challenged while feeling supported. Because there's a difference of just constantly being challenged and the other person is not supporting you. But when you get both, that is really where the magic is. You want to be challenged and supported. Because research shows that supportive peer environments are going to increase your confidence and your self-determination. So I've mentioned before, like with my FRG, reflecting on that, they're really pushing me to grow. Funny story. So at this past meeting, my friend Erin, shout out to Erin, who is in my FRG, she kind of laughed and she said, hey, Joy, remember when you came into this and really what you achieved in 1 year was what you thought you were going to achieve in 10 years. And there was a dollar amount tied to that. And I almost didn't remember that. But it was just so funny that she brought that up because my goalpost was so short when it was just me. But this group has challenged me to say, like, hey, you could 10x that. Like, you can go farther, you can do more, you can achieve more, you can have bigger dreams. And so sometimes without these groups, you don't have the people that believe in you, and so you don't dream big enough. And so having your own group is going to push you. And then on top of that, they're going to celebrate when you win. And they're also going to celebrate things that you might minimize. Like, there's things that I've achieved that I'm like, oh, that's no big deal. Or I have a bad habit of saying it should have been better. It should have been more. I should have made more. I should have worked less. Like, I can really start to minimize some of the things I achieved. Whereas if you're in the right group, they're going to celebrate those things. And then on top of that, you're really going to be able to start normalizing hard seasons because you're going to realize other business owners are going through the same seasons as you, and it's not always easy. In fact, it's probably harder most of the time than it is easy. But when you can start to realize that pattern and see that that's what other people are working through too, that is normal. But at the end of the day, my FRG group does not let me play small, but they also don't let me spiral out of control. And so having the right group is truly beneficial. Another great benefit of being in a mastermind is that your peers are going to have perspective and it's going to help improve your decision making. Because honestly, we all have blind spots. And when you're inside of the business, it's really hard to see clearly. Research actually shows collaboration improves problem solving and innovation, which I think is so true because like I said in the beginning, like you can start to spiral or you're just repeating problems over and over. Whereas if you are collaborating with other people, you are starting to identify problems sooner and working through solutions. And ultimately, you're innovating in your business. You're making things better and you're achieving more. One of the benefits of our FRG group is that we're all different sizes. And so you see different problems and you see different experiences. And I might have conversations with people about experiences I have not had yet, but it's really preparing me for when I do get to that level, I know what to expect. And I can see how they had a problem and they solved it and they worked through it. And I am building my problem solving. That's the easiest way to say that. When you are surrounded by people that are solving bigger problems, that's going to make it easier for you when you go down that path. So borrowing someone else's lesson is way faster than learning the hard way. And that has been super beneficial to me. But to be honest, not all groups are created equal. And so looking to get into a mastermind or a community, what do you even need to look for? I think it's important that you look for peers that are at a similar and slightly higher level than you. Yes, we want to be in masterminds with people that are 10x, 50x of us, but quite honestly, we're not always going to be able to relate to them. And so you want to find people that are at your level or slightly above. And this is probably one of the hardest things to find, but a willingness for other people to be honest and transparent. Because you come to these group meetings and it is actually pretty easy to see when maybe people aren't being honest. And so that's not fun to deal with and not fun to go through, not fun to discuss. And so you really want to find a group that your peers can be honest with you. That's super important. Another point is you want to look for structured conversation. These are not meetings where we're just like willy-nilly talking about whatever we're feeling like in the moment. They're very structured and there's a rhyme and a reason to that. We're not just venting and telling stories. And so if you want to get the most out of a mastermind or a community, there needs to be structure and there needs to be mutual respect. And this is a big one, confidentiality. You need to be with people that you trust and you respect because you're going to be more willing to share your truth and what's going on, as well as accept their solutions or their advice. And you really can't do that without their respect and knowing that you're in a safe space. What you're talking about is going to be kept confidential. That is huge. Because a mastermind is not a networking group and it is not business coaching. If you want coaching, you will be more successful getting that one-on-one and working through that with a business coach. But if you want problem solving and innovation and ideas and guidance and a group to stretch you, you need to think about more of a mastermind or a community. Because what it is peer level growth and accountability. So if there's one thing I want you to take away from this episode, it's this. Your growth as a business owner will almost always be limited by the rooms you are in. When you're only thinking in your own head and you stay stuck in your blind spots, When you're only accountable to yourself, it is easy to lower the bar. But when you put your goals and your numbers, your challenges in front of the right people, everything changes. The right community will challenge you to raise your standards, support you through hard lessons, and celebrate wins when you might otherwise brush past them. So if you're feeling stuck, you're overwhelmed, or like you're carrying too much alone, the answer may not be another tactic or another tool. It might be finding the right room. Because growth doesn't happen in isolation, it happens in community. Thanks for tuning in to Upleveling. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It helps more entrepreneurs like you discover the show. Let's keep the conversation going. Connect with us on social media or visit aligncpa.com for resources and updates. Until next time, keep leading, optimizing, and upleveling.